Okay, hey guys. Um, sure. So this is we're streaming live on Twitter and a number of other platforms. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just kind of messing with this. If you guys want, you can message me, and I'm happy to talk to you guys. I'm about to go live on the radio show in a little bit, about 20 minutes. Um, so I've got a little bit of time to talk to you guys. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Still learning this different platforms. Really interesting. Just try not to miss anything. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so we got a number of good guests today. Chris Carmona is going to be on. He's going to be hosting with me, helping me. Sure. So we're going to also have an attorney, Sean Timmons. He does a lot of veteran law. He can give us a lot of insight on that. It's going to be really fascinating. Yeah. Yeah, if you guys just message me, you can direct message me if you want to ask me questions or if you want ask me if you have any input of topics you want me to talk about, you can direct message me. I'm going to go down right now and get the guests. I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so you're not going to see me for a couple minutes. Going downstairs, let the guest in, and I'll be back. Okay, guys? So don't go anywhere or what have you. You're going to see it's, it's going to be it's pre-show. So I'll see it in a little bit. They have these passes you got to use to get in. And that's what I'm going to go do. I'm going to go run and get Sean. Okay, I'll be back, folks. law.
Oh yeah, the judges and we got some new judges that are
We got a lot of new judges.
really qualified. You know,
Some of them really good, some of them are bad.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, a couple of them are just unbelievable. But you know,
The ones we had, we had John Phillips, who was a really horrible person. He was a judge for a while. He was in the juvenile courts.
That's right. Yeah.
Those courts, have you practiced any juvenile law?
Mm-mm.
Good, because back when up until this year, those judges were horrible. They were horrible. So though there was, I'm saddened by some of the really great judges we had. Some of those bad judges,
Oh yeah.
they had a long time coming. They're just mean-spirited. Chris will be here in a little bit.
Okay.
See, they're headphones, so you can. There's no rush. We got a little bit of time. Oh, so it'll start about 6 after.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, that's a little loud. Okay, let's see what my folks on.
Are we video recording here too, or?
I am on my computer. I'm streaming.
Cool.
I'm streaming. But and you can video record on your phone if you want to do that, or whatever you want to do.
Oh, okay, yeah. I can record the part I'm on. Sure, absolutely. That'd be awesome.
But whatever you want to do, man.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I don't. So what have you been? I know you've been doing. You're working at veteran law firm.
Yeah, I work at the military law firm in Tully Rinke. So we the bread and butter of the practice is military and federal employment, but they branch into other areas too. So they do a little bit of everything depending on which geographic location we're at. So in New York City, they do international trade. In Ireland, they do employment law, international immigration. In Syracuse, Buffalo, they do a lot of DUI defense, divorces.
You're mostly in the Texas area, or
I'm Houston. Yeah, I cover Houston and Austin, but I'm in the Houston office. But from Houston, I'm really flying to wherever the cases are.
So they got you going everywhere then.
Yeah, the cases take me globally because people in the military, get in trouble wherever.
So you're actually doing like law, and you're doing law in New York and wherever
it happens, wherever the case happens to take me. Yeah, so I've got active cases in the Eastern District of New York against the Merchant Marine Academy, suing them for throwing my client out under Title IX, violating the principles and rules there. I've got cases against the Naval Academy, against the Air Force Academy, against so each service academy where we defend the cadets who are being thrown out.
Mm-hmm.
Each installation where there's somebody assigned in the military, they're facing a court-martial. We can defend them, or they're facing a separation board, which is like a termination proceeding. We defend them, trying to keep them in their career. So it's a mixture of administrative and criminal, and some employment law too. I do reservists who have USERRA cases. That's one of our lucrative practices, where USERRA is the reservist comes back, and they're put in the closet when they should have been promoted, and they're mistreated. So then, like airline pilots, for example, they used to have a really lucrative route where they used to work a certain shift, and then they're given the crappiest assignment possible when they come back, and they're like, wait a minute, I used to have a route where I flew Austin to Albuquerque to LA, and now I've got this crappy route where I'm flying Austin to Harlingen and Austin to Dallas, and that's it. And I'm not leaving the state, and I'm not getting to be home because I live in Nebraska. I'm not getting proper treatment. So basically what happens is, I got a great example. The school district, Spring ISD, we're suing them because the principal deployed to the border, and before he left, they were like, you need to get all your affairs wrapped up now. You can't all your assignments that are due in January, February, you got to get them ahead of time. And he's like, I don't know when I'm coming back, so somebody else is going to have to take care of it. And they're like, well, it's not fair to us that you're making us do your work. And he's like, well, I have to go deployed. I can't not follow my orders. And they're like, well, you voluntarily chose to do that, so you're screwing us over. And it's like, wait a minute. So they ended up asking him to resign because he had to go deploy. And it's like, wait a minute, you're constructively terminating him because he has military service obligation? when the statute specifically says you can't do that, you have to protect his job, and you know, other people have to cover down. It sucks for the other people, I get that, but the law is very clear. USERRA protects his right to be reemployed. So, you know, it's going to be interesting how that gets resolved. But I mean, the problem with USERRA is nobody heard of it. Honestly, the general counsels, they don't have anybody in their family who's military, and employment law is not a required course in law school. So, and it's not something that's tested necessarily on the bar exam either. So, very few lawyers know anything about USERRA. And USERRA is a statute that makes military status a protected classification, just like race or gender.
That's really fascinating.
And not only that, but race and gender,
either.
there's defenses that are strong. You know,
But there's no defenses with this?
there's just almost like strict liability. So they gut the defenses available. So, you know, like for gender and race discrimination, you could show some kind of legitimate business justification or some kind of defenses that are available to rebut the presumption. Under the military protection statute under USERRA, it's almost strict liability. It's like once the violation is shown, you're liable regardless of whether you knew or not, or you had any business justification.
So part of it is like you're educating, you know, people that y'all are potentially suing.
Yes, but through the demand letter process.
Demand letter, probably attaching the law to the demand letter, highlighting it.
Highlighting the provisions. And then obviously, you know, a couple of defense firms, Jackson Lewis and Litter Medelson, specialize in employment defense, and they know about USERRA, but in-house counsels generally are not knowledgeable of it, and most big law firms don't really handle USERRA defense. So only a couple law firms in the country have cornered the market on USERRA defense, which is Littler and Jackson Lewis, and every other law firm doesn't really touch it. And most of the in-house counsels, like at Sears or Kroger, was terrible about this too. Kroger had a policy where you made a certain salary, but if you were gone for 6 months and you came back and wanted your job again, you went back to minimum wage. Well, people went to Afghanistan for a year.
You can't do that with USERRA, can you?
Exactly. You went to Afghanistan for a year and you're making $10 an hour, and you come back and like, hey, you were gone for more than 6 months. You go back to minimum wage. That's a statutory violation. That's penalties, interest, you know, punitive damages. Because it's willful. I mean, and the policy.
So what are the damages if they violate it? Besides just
actual, and it could be treble damages. So yeah, if you prove knowing violations and attorney fees.
So it's like DTPA.
It's like DTPA with attorney fees attached too as a catcher. So if you have 80,000 attorney fees, the burden shifts to the other side to pay the attorney fees. So we collect attorney fees plus damages that are substantial. So it's actual plus, you know, double or triple damages. The state law sometimes authorizes even more than that too. So if you go to the jurisdiction, some states are even more protective. So yeah, Texas follows the federal statute, but I mean if you go to like New York, where it's even more.
So you're doing a lot of. Are you grabbing your licenses everywhere, or are you just practicing pro hac vici, or how you?
I take the Texas cases. We have attorneys. We have 80 attorneys. Okay. Most of our attorneys cover different states. If we have a court or a case where we will partner with local counsel, and they'll get a cut of the case.
Yeah.
Or we'll do pro hac vici. Alaska has real liberal pro hac rules, so I'm on cases in Alaska.
Imagine you're doing a number of federal cases too.
Yes, a lot of federal USERRA cases with those. It's all federal.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
And
well, I guess you could have a handful of state if the state law was stronger than the federal law.
Yes, and in New York that's the case. So we have a lot of offices in New York, and the New York state law is actually more protective than USERRA. So it's even more lucrative, the damage model and stuff. It's more plaintiff friendly.
Oh, well, that's sweet. You've got some really juicy stuff to talk about, Sean.
Appreciate it. Yeah, it's an interesting niche because
I've never heard of it. It kind of blew my mind.
Most people don't know about it, and most companies don't know about it because their own attorneys have no knowledge of it.
No,
and they just apply their rules across the board, and then when you apply those rules to people in the military, there's a different set of guidelines, but they don't seem to understand that.
And so y'all market. I guess y'all market mainly to the military.
Yeah, military and veteran communities. Yeah. There's 18 million veterans, so that's a pretty large pool of potential clients.
That's right.
Of the there's 2 million active duty, or 1 million plus active duty, plus 1 million in reserves.
Real clean. So you're doing plaintiff's work. It's clean plaintiff's work. You're actually helping people. I like it. I like it very much, Sean.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
I do like it.
Yeah, it's clean enough. I mean, it's sometimes you get. You have to get in the weeds on cases. And
of course you got to get in the weeds.
People are full of crap sometimes, but that's what any case.
Yeah, but you're at least on the right.
So I'm doing plaintiff's work, and I'm doing some criminal defense for military wise.
Well, that's fun too.
So, those are always fascinating. A lot of and a lot of political stuff too with this with the university students because they're all tied up in the Title IX stuff.
Oh.
And the Title IX, that's why the rules are getting changed because so many physicians' kids and doctors' kids, well-off parents saw their kids getting thrown out of school unfairly. So they've been lobbying Congress to change the rules. And that's why the Department of Education is finally going to change the standards on these proceedings. But these colleges have been doing kangaroo courts. Just, as soon as somebody's accused of anything, they've been throwing them right out the door, unless they're a football player. If they make money, like Baylor. If they make money for the football team, then they'll circle the wagons and protect them, and they'll throw the accuser out. But if it's anything else, not if you're not making money for the school, then you're right out the door, and they don't do any kind of evidentiary proceeding or any protection.
Kick you right out.
They just kick you right out. I mean, they do a kangaroo court.
Even if it's state, even if it's a state school, it doesn't matter.
Pretty much, yeah. And then they black mark your transcript, and the transcript says you're a sex pervert, and basically I'm shortening the words.
No, I understand.
But then you go try to apply for another university, they're like, oh, we don't want you. You were thrown out for being a sex pervert. So you're almost blacklisted from any kind of additional educational attainment.
Except for maybe like community college.
Yep, community college.
The University of Phoenix.
Yes, yeah. The online courses they'll take your money no matter what. They'll accept you. Or the University of Nigeria will print you a degree for a fee. But I mean, besides for the scams, any legitimate accredited university probably doesn't want you. So.
First comment?
And it's kind of sad because most of the people who've been victimized by it, honestly, who've been thrown out, have been people who couldn't afford a lawyer because they couldn't defend against it, and the law is being changed because the neurosurgeon's kids got screwed, and the neurosurgeon has money to hire a good legal team. So that's the exact case I had at UT Austin. I had the son of a neurosurgeon.
I think Chris is in. I think Chicago. Yeah, put in your headphones. I think that's what it is. I think Chicago. Yeah. Let's see if I'm allowed to do this. Okay. Okay. How do I get this in? So we're going to be on in a couple minutes. We got about 6 minutes. Oh, put your headphone. You got it on there? You can adjust the volume there.
Can you hear me?
No, I mean,
Sorry. Hello?
That's okay. That's okay. Okay, let's see. Hey guys, so we're about to start the show. We got a really good guest, Sean Timmons, who does military law. It's going to be really fascinating here. We've got a number of topics. We're going to cover some of the local elections. Chris is in Chicago. He's going to call in, and it should be really fascinating. If you guys have anything you want to talk about, just message me. Happy to talk about it. We're going to start the show in about 4 minutes. Anyway, we're also on Twitter at Dick Law Firm and another of other platforms. Okay, yeah. So, sure. You guys have anything you want to talk about? You could turn to. Okay, we got Chris. Good. Yeah, you can log. You can put him on. You can chime him in. I'm sure he's. See right there. I need to see if I can. The studio monitor. No one's gonna hear nothing here. I'll have to figure this out. Okay. Chris, you there? No? Oh, we'll hear in a minute. Okay. Got it. So it goes silent. It's doing the news. That's why you don't hear anything. It's doing the news. Then you'll hear the intro music in a little bit. It's kind of interesting.
Oh, cool.
Then we'll go into it. Chris and I will talk for a little bit. Then we'll. I don't know how to add it. Okay. Doesn't say in the bottom ad. Doesn't say it at all. Yes. Particularly know all this technology. I'm doing good just to be on the social media. Okay. See, invite friends. I don't see I can add, Chris. Saying I can add. I don't know how to add. It says click on the button at the bottom that knows how to add. I don't know. See it. Got 2 minutes. Let's see if I can maybe do it this way.
This is Fox News.
Classic Chevy Sugarland, relax, enjoy the day.
Okay, we got a little bit.
From the Employee Diamonds and Design Traffic Center.
We have 2 accidents working now. The first is going to be moving southbound on 45 through the downtown area. Right before 69, 2 right lanes are blocked. The delays back from I-10. And traveling inbound.
Hey guys, can you hear the?
That is causing minor delays back from 90.
Can y'all hear
I'm
the?
Steve Fonson, the 24-hour traffic center.
Where'd it go?
This report is brought to you by Lowe's. Black Friday deals are still going strong at Lowe's, where you can save $20 on a Craftsman 51-piece mechanics tool set for just $59.98. Backed by a full lifetime warranty. Pictures at Lowe's, the new home of Craftsman. Offer valid through 11/28 while supplies last. See store for details. U.S. only. Before your head hits the pillow.
Can y'all hear? I think y'all can.
Fill your head with what's going on around town. We always have our finger on the pulse tonight.
Okay, good. So y'all can hear the. Okay, good. Okay, we're about to start any second now.
You don't have to be an outlaw to need good attorneys.
Opinions provided on the Eric Dick Show are for informational purposes only, and not for the purpose of providing legal advice. You should contact your attorney to obtain advice with respect to any particular issue or problem. The opinions expressed on the Eric Dick Show are that of the hosts and guests, and do not reflect the opinions of this station or iHeartMedia.
When you've got big problems, you need to have a you need Eric Dick, homeowner insurance lawyer and trustee for the Harris County Department of Education. This is the Eric Dick Show.
Hey guys, welcome back to my radio show here on AM 950. This is Eric Dick, and we've got a number of great guests. I've got Sean Timmons with me. He does military law, and I believe Chris Carmona is remote from. What do you got? What do you do? Aren't you hanging out in Chicago? Aren't you remote in Chicago? Well, I don't know, but I went to Alabama, so I always say Roll Tide. Oh, oh, they can't. Oh, they can't hear. They can't hear you, Chris. Oh no, they can't hear you at all.
Hey, speaking of football, though, our condolences have to go out to Texans owner Bob McNair, passed away yesterday.
Yeah, I saw that, and that's kind of sad. There's a lot of people had mixed feelings towards Bob, but he did a really good job with a lot of great things, and he was quite a philanthropist. So, a lot of people are sad that he's gone.
Yeah, I know. Last year, he was involved in that controversial with the Colin Kaepernick, take a knee, don't take a knee. He made the comments, we're not going to let the inmates run the asylum, and that really offended a lot of people. But at the end of the day, you look at his body of work, he was hugely involved with the political atmosphere, was a great contributor to the Republican Party. But he also always found time to make sure he donated and contributed to a lot of great causes he felt would be better for the community in general and as a whole. And it's going to be very sad to see his legacy go on without him. And the Texans never won a championship while he was here, and maybe they can do something this year or the next.
So how was your Thanksgiving? Did you spend your Thanksgiving in Chicago?
I actually did both. I started it in Houston, and then I took a late night flight and got to Chicago and got here just in time to have some great Irish food on Thanksgiving. So it was good. How was yours?
We had a great time as always. We're big eaters. If you don't know my family, we're always good at eating. So Thanksgiving is one of the best holidays there are for eating. Even though I think it's sad that the city has continued to make it criminal to give food to the homeless on days like Thanksgiving, and just all days in general. I think that's sad, but I am happy we had a good holiday, and I hope many of the listeners had great holidays, and I always enjoy this time of the year.
Man, speaking of this time of the year and what we have to be thankful for, one thing I can say I'm personally thankful for is that I was not in charge of the shipwreck happened 2 weeks ago with the Harris County Republican Party.
Jeez.
And every single Republican losing countywide. I am greatly thankful for that, Eric.
So I'm glad you brought that up. So we've talked about this a number of times. I think we should kind of dive right into it some more about just the massive failure of the local Republican Party in Harris County. I think it's sad that you had some really, really good judges lose. People like, Sherry Dean, Roy Moore, James Lombardino. You had a number of just really kind-hearted judges leave. But there was also some judges that I'm not sad to see leave at all. And you had a lot of the judges in the juvenile courts that were some of the worst judges that ever were.
Yeah.
It doesn't bother me any. And some of the judges in the county criminal courts were pretty bad, and it doesn't bother me that they're gone. So you have it cuts both ways, and it's a new day in Harris County. What'll happen? What the story to be told from the new elected judges? It could be good. It could be bad. It remains to be seen. Some of them have very little experience and are not going. They're going to have to learn, on the job, learn as they're doing it. Some of them have fantastic experience and they're going to be great judges. I'm thinking And I know some Republicans might get mad at me that I say a Democrat could be a good judge, but they daggum well can. And sometimes they're better than our Republican judges. I know in the 281st, I know Babs is going to be a really fantastic judge. Not to say that the judge that we had before, Goodwin, wasn't a good judge. She was a fantastic person. But I think Babs will be, a really good judge. And I think the county court is going to have a lot of the civil county courts. There's going to be a lot of good judges there. It's going to be interesting in the civil district courts and the criminal courts and the family courts, because there's a lot of judges in the family courts that don't know what they're doing. So it's going to be interesting.
It is going to be interesting, and I mean, you said it. I mean, no party is immune to having bad judges on the ballot or bad judges on the bench. I mean, we've seen our fair share of terrible Republican judges, and we've seen our fair share of terrible Democrat judges. So yeah, you're right. It does cut both ways, and I'm kind of excited to see some of these new judges on the bench, only because it's a fresh start. Some people say that the process has become too bogged down with politics in the courtroom. I can honestly say I haven't seen that or witnessed it to where it's a problem, but I can see where the appearance and the perception has become that, and I think having a whole new slate of judges may clear that out and at least make it a clear start for 2020 and beyond. Starting this year in 2019. But one thing we got to talk about again is, you talk about experience and inexperience, is that of Lina Hidalgo. Is she going to be equipped and ready to take on the responsibilities of being the county judge at just 27 years old?
Well, you got to keep in mind that what the county judge does versus the county commissioners. The county judge is basically a wannabe 200-pound gorilla versus the county commissioners are the 200-pound, gorillas, 200-ton or 2-ton gorillas. When I say that is the county commissioners, they actually are both the legislative and executive branch kind of combined in one, versus the county judge, which they have specific roles, but the county judge is more of a figurehead, though it does have specific roles that it does. So that, oddly enough, that doesn't bother me too much. It bothers me some, but not too much. I'm more saddened that the local party didn't do enough for, our commissioner in county court and our commissioner in 2, who was
Jack Mormon.
Jack he really did a good job. He was a really great person, and I don't know that the current commissioner is going to be, though he's a career politician, I don't know that he'll be able to live up to many of the great things that Jack has done, but it remains to be seen. What I'm saddened the most about is how our chairman of the Republican Party is kind of doubling down, and his minions are kind of doubling down, saying that it wasn't their fault. They're kind of blaming Trump for the election instead of kind of how we talked about. It's really what was going on is you had kind of a discord that was caused by Ted Cruz. The fact that he wasn't campaigning, that he wasn't out and working the areas, that he was coming off as like arrogant and just not interested in helping people.
Oh, and it got worse. He didn't just blame Trump. He basically said in 1974, Republicans lost everything and they had to wait 10 years before they can win again when they got a new president. So it's not that he just blamed it on Trump. He actually said the Republican Party is not going to win again until until we get a new president. He didn't say his name. He said until we get a new president, the Republican Party in Harris County is not going to win. So he pretty much just threw up his arms and said he's nothing he can do about it, but yet he won't step down.
Yeah, let's go into that a little bit more, and after we take a break, guys. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate all of you guys on Facebook interacting at Eric V. Dick or on Twitter at Dick Law Firm, and we're going to take a short break, and we'll get right back. Thanks, guys. So we got a really good guest, Chris. You there?
Curious about investing in cannabis? Learn more about how to invest in the booming cannabis industry. Go watch the High Times Investor webinar at hightimesinvestor.com. That's hightimesinvestor.com.
High Times Holding Corp's offering will be made only by means of an offering circular, which has been filed with and qualified by the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. These securities are highly speculative. Investing in shares of common stock of High Times Holding Corp involves significant risks. The investment is suitable only for persons who can afford to lose their entire investment. Furthermore, investors must understand that such investment could be illiquid for an indefinite period of time. No public market currently exists for the securities, and if a public market develops following the offering, it may not continue. To obtain a copy of the offering circular, which contains information about High Times Holding Corp., the offering, and other related topics, including the risks of the investment, please visit hightimesinvestor.com. That's hightimesinvestor.com. iHeartMedia and its affiliates are investors in High Times Holding Corp., but are not associated with this offering. iHeartMedia and its affiliates are not responsible for the information contained in this message, the information included at hightimesinvestor.com, or the information filed with the Securities and Exchange Commission.
NMLS number 99250-2233, Yellow Street, Houston, Texas.
Texas Lone Star, L-O-A-N. Texas Lone Star can help you get the mortgage on the new house you're buying, refinance the mortgage you already have. You're in between homes. Maybe Harvey put you in a bad situation and you have a home there that you haven't rebuilt yet, but you need to move. You need some bridge financing. They can handle all that and be glad to. I've used them for 20 years. 713-802-0606. 713-802-0606.
Lennon Ford Whisperer.
Our massive fall clearance is on.
With $20,000 off MSRP on new 2018 F-150 Super Crew.
Trucks, and more trucks.
$20,000 off Super Crew. PlanetFord.com.
We're dealing.
The Jesse Kelly Show.
I had the Marine Corps background. I ran for U.S. Congress.
Monday night at 7.
Moved to D.C., worked in a
10 seconds.
for a while. That was just as awful as you can possibly imagine.
Jesse Kelly.
One man.
On KPRC 950.
Hey guys, we're back. Thank you for tuning in on my radio show here on AM 950. We've got a really great guest today, Sean Timmons, who does military law. And also we have Chris Carmona, who is on remote from Chicago. As we were talking about, if you just tuned in, we're talking about like kind of the local politics, how the local county elections was a big, massive sweep towards the Democrat Party. And basically the failed leadership in the local Republican Party and putting blame on everybody else for what happened. Does that summarize it, you think, Chris?
You summarize it perfectly. I mean, and that's one thing that a lot of the opponents of the current chair have been saying for years now is this guy can't take responsibility for anything. It's always someone else's fault. And the guy's lost almost every election there's been since 2015. And if there's going to be a Republican Party locally in Harris County going forward, there has to be some immediate changes because, you know, like you said at the beginning of the show, a lot of great judges got moved off. Yes, some bad ones, but a lot of great ones did too. And that affects a lot of the people around Harris County, especially when they have litigation they must face, especially after we saw last year with Hurricane Harvey and a lot of suits that are going to follow through, that have followed through, because people have to be made whole when they get damaged. And if we don't have judges on the bench to know what they're doing, it affects everybody and everyone's lives. And that's why if they don't have competent judges, at least we can depend on competent attorneys. And that's why we have people like Eric B. Dick, Houston's homeowner insurance lawyer, who'll be able to fight those fights if you need them to.
And we've done a lot of Hurricane Harvey claims, and we're continuing to do a lot of those claims, and the claims that happened during, the Halloween, and they're endless. And if anybody is interested in learning and they have problems with their insurance company, they can always go to my website at www.dicklawfirm.com. But speaking of lawyers, we have this really fantastic guest. I keep speaking about him because he practices an area of law that I'm learning about. And I've done a number of different areas of law, but I haven't had anyone ever tell me they practice military law before. Sean, anyway, I'd like you to talk a little bit about yourself, Sean, kind of what you do and what law firm you work with.
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate the opportunity to be on the show. I'm managing partner of Tully Rinke PLC here in Houston, Texas. I run the Houston and Austin offices of our firm. We have 13 offices around the globe. You can look our website up at tullylegal.com. That's TULLYLEGAL.com, where you can see my profile. My practice covers the globe. I represent active duty military in court martials and administrative board proceedings. I represent those veterans who want to clean up their military record. Maybe they were discharged with an OTH or bad paper and they want to get VA benefits post service. A lot of people who are homeless who are veterans obviously have bad paper and they need to get their records corrected. They may have been thrown out of the military unfairly. There's 18 million veterans in our country, and we try to handle as many of them as possible as clients to help them out. There's also 1 million active duty and another million in reserves, and we represent a lot of those around the globe. My practice also touches reservists in employment law. So I have a plaintiff's practice where I help individuals, say if they're a pilot for Southwest Airlines or any airline, and they're over in Afghanistan for a year or two and they come back and their employer's mistreating them. We help them out because USERRA, which is a law nobody knows anything about, it's the Uniform Services Employment Reemployment Rights Act, and it covers discrimination against those in military service, meaning it protects them the same way Title VII does for race and gender discrimination. That's generally not well known. So if you're serving in the military and you're a reservist and you come back and your employer mistreats you or cut your pay or gives you bad conditions or won't give you a raise or ostracize you in any way, they're violating USERRA, and they're open to significant damages.
Now, what's really interesting about this is it's when you say significant damages, like it's more than just kind of a slap on the wrist. This is kind of like a DTPA, like a national DTPA. Am I wrong about that?
No, that's exactly right. It can lead to double or treble damages, depending on which state statute might be more protective than USERRA. But the federal rule itself is very protective, and the standard of liability is pretty close to strict liability, meaning once the employer violates the rule, they're on the hook. In gender discrimination cases or in race discrimination cases, there's some kind of bona fide defenses available. When military discrimination cases, the defenses available are minimal, and the employers are subject to very severe liability.
Yeah, Sean, I don't want to beat around the bush. I want to get right to the question everybody wants to know what's going on. Is right now we see that the Supreme Court is about to make a decision, or the administration has asked them to make a decision on the transgender in the military issue. How do you see that playing out? What is the implications of that? Is that going to be good for the United States? Is it going to be bad for the United States? What are your thoughts on that?
That's a very good question. The transgender ban will be upheld by the Supreme Court. I predict at least 5-4, possibly 6-3, maybe even 7-2. The president, as commander-in-chief, sets the guidelines and publishes the UCMJ and publishes the regulations governing the armed forces. And the military is given extreme deference by the court, generally speaking. So you have some activist courts out in Ninth Circuit. You have activist courts wanting to rewrite military policy. But the general rule is the judicial branch will give deference to the executive branch and the conduct of affairs concerning the military. So if the president wants to ban transgender individuals and promote a regulation that says such, that will be upheld by the Supreme Court.
So this USERRA stuff, that's what it's called, USERRA, is that right, Sean?
That is correct, yes.
So this USERRA stuff, states can have laws, with following USERRA that are stronger or, weaker, what have you. How does Texas's law, rank up to other states with USERRA?
Texas is right in the middle. It protects individual employees, but it doesn't provide any additional protections beyond the federal statute.
So you'd think, Texas is a pretty strong Republican state, isn't it, Sean?
That is correct, but because it's a plaintiff statute and it subjects employers to significant liability, Texas being pro-business will not establish additional damages.
So what you're telling me is because basically the politicians are bought off by these tort reform lobbies, that they won't enact laws that are beneficial to veterans, even though they jump up and down and say they love veterans and all this type of stuff. Is that what you're telling me?
That's exactly what I'm telling you. They'll protect veterans within the federal rules, but they won't provide additional resources because they want to protect the liability of the major employers. And a lot of these employers have in-house counsel who are attorneys working for them who never heard of USERRA. When we send a demand letter, we advise them we actually spell out the rules and the law, and they come back to me on the phone. They're totally clueless. They call their outside counsel, and they're educated, and they often have to pay significant damages to get these cases resolved, and their own attorneys don't even know anything about it.
Well, so it's part education, but also these laws are really important for people in the military because basically they're leaving and they just want to be brought back to the status quo whenever they come back. That's kind of the gist of it. And you can much better explain that than I can. Sean, isn't that right?
Absolutely. For example, a lot of school districts have reservists who are teachers or principals, and the school district, if somebody's going to be gone, say they're deployed to the border right now, if they're away, their duties have to be fulfilled by somebody else. Often the employees who are left behind may be angry or hostile to their military reservist is going to be gone, and they'll blame them. Hey, why are you going to leave? What, you're screwing us over. Well, that hostility is hostile work environment, and that's actually against the statute. And that kind of behavior is no different than saying, oh, you're a woman, we don't want you here, or you're an African American, we don't want you here. If you engage in hostile language to your military reservist who's working with you, that's a violation of the statute, and that alone can subject your employer to significant liability. So
now, Sean, how often does this actually occur? Because this is one of those things where it may happen a lot. We just never hear about it because there's no high-profile cases that we know of. How often does this happen within Texas?
It happens all the time, and honestly, the corporations settle with non-disclosure agreements, keeping the information as secret as possible before they get caught publicly. But there are some high-profile cases that have generated case law where attorney fees are paid, and sometimes the attorney fees are over 6 figures. It's quite substantial. You often have a lot of local jurisdictions too. Police officers who work as a regular patrolman, and they deploy, they come back, and they're mistreated.
3-minute station.
Those police officers, have dual roles, and they should be given the same dignity and respect in both statuses. But often, the departments, there's inter-rivalry because one group is reservists and one group isn't, and they may feel like they're gaming the system, but they're not gaming the system. They're complying with their military orders.
Wow. And so this is something we always hear about, or that we don't hear about, but it's happening all the time. Would you say this is top 3 issues that servicemen face when coming back into the workforce after they're doing their main service, and then they just end up in the reserves? I mean, is it a top 3 issue?
It definitely is. Another issue is the SCRA, the Service Members Civil Relief Act. A lot of times individuals, once you're activated in the military, you call your credit card company up and you get your interest rate lowered to 6%. So if you're a civilian right now and you're in the reserves and you're paying 25% interest on your credit card and you get orders to Afghanistan, you need to call the Bank of America or whoever your lender is and immediately have your rate reduced to 6%. That's something a lot of people don't know about, but the SCRA...
Yeah, I didn't know about that. Wow.
I didn't know about it either. I didn't know about this nuanced area of law, and I'd hope that I'm a pretty knowledgeable attorney. It's very fascinating area of law.
Yeah, I mean, Eric, am I wrong? But when we think of service members and military law, 2 things that I think we always refer to or think about is, issues resolving, rotating around, default judgments. You can't take default judgments against service members. In family cases, it happens to be, if you're going to be deployed, can you have somebody stand in your stead to make sure your child is having visitation, or someone of your representative? Foreclosures, credit card companies, things like that. But this whole other area of this USERRA, that's it's fascinating.
It's very fascinating. We're going to get back to it in just a couple of minutes. We're going to take a quick break. Thank you guys for tuning in. Eric B. Dick on Facebook and at Dick Law Firm on Twitter. Thanks, folks. Okay, so Victoria, I saw what you posted. We also have a current state representative that is in jail in Fort Bend County, Missouri County, not Missouri County, Fort Bend County, Ron Reynolds. So that's not, I understand that, some people who are a Democrat, Missouri City, yeah, that's exactly what we're talking about, Victoria. Ron Reynolds is the same person. You're right. Okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you for coming on. We've still got a bit more to go about, but
sure.
We should also talk about those kangaroo courts.
Let's talk about Title IX, and I represent people in the military who are in the cadets, and Betsy DeVos is changing the rules finally to Obama in 2011 gutted the Constitution by allowing universities to send these little students out without any kind of real evidence or hearings, and that generated a whole lot of injustice. The courts 117 times reversing those.
I think so, man. This is really great stuff.
Title IX, the intersection between Title IX and
this giving season, there's no better way to say happy
so
holidays.
the laws that are more, like in New York, the laws are more favorable to the vets? Like, what do they do? Like, what are...
It's not necessarily more favorable, it's just that the damages are more
all holiday cards and calendars at VistaPrint.com. Plus, save on other photo gifts. It's our best deal of the
damages
season.
if it's
So
intentional.
get Black Friday prices with 60% off all holiday cards and calendars. Plus, save on other photo gifts at VistaPrint.com. Just enter promo code Radio60 60. That's Vistaprint.com, promo code radio60.
This is Michael Garfield. Sound off 24/7 like a true Texan should.
Less
Go to the
on
KPRCradio.com website
the
and click
lawyer,
the Facebook link.
advocating on behalf
Comments might be the topic of my next
the
show.
military vets. On behalf of vets. I think this is really
So easy,
really good,
even your
really
kid
good
can
stuff.
do it.
Alexa, play KPRC
I mean,
on
Texas definitely,
iHeartRadio.
supposedly, Texas has some benefits for veterans that other states don't.
Hey folks, we're back. This is Eric Dick. I've got Sean Timmons here, who's a military vet lawyer, talking about some really fascinating stuff. Chris Carmona, who's remote in Chicago. When we left off, we were basically talking about military law, how there's a federal kind of law that most lawyers don't know about, how the state is able to, expand the law, make it more favorable to the vet, or not. Texas has chose not to do anything. My assumption of that is based on special interests preventing them from doing anything. And where is that about about an accurate representation of where we were, Sean?
That sounds right. Yes.
Okay, so would you mind talking about Title IX? That's some really fascinating law right there.
I appreciate that. There's an intersection between Title IX and those, say, at Texas A&M University who are part of the Corps of Cadets. If you want to get a free education, one avenue is ROTC, Reserve Officer Training Corps, where you agree to sign a contract and you get the military, the Navy or the Army or Air Force will pay your tuition if you agree to serve as a military officer upon completion of your ROTC training during college. So you earn college credits and you graduate, then you go serve in the military and your education is paid for. Along the way, though, a lot of my clients get hiccups. One of the areas they get hiccups on is Title IX accusations. These are accusations where they had a drunken sexual situation, and now there's an accusation that there was a lack of consent with a relationship. Well, that upon accusation alone, universities, unless you're funding the football program, which Baylor is an exception, they notoriously defended a lot of individuals who should have been thrown out. But beyond that, if you're a regular student and you're in the ROTC program and you're accused of sexual misconduct, the university throws you right out.
Wow.
Well, that messes up your ROTC contract because you've agreed to serve the military, and now you're facing expulsion from school based on an accusation alone.
So that what you're saying is just, it doesn't even have to be a true accusation. It could be a completely false accusation. Nothing even happened between.
So no due process.
Basically, no due process until recently. The rules are about to change soon. The reason why I say that they're so egregious is often the local DA will get the accusation, do an investigation, determine there is no probable cause.
Not even probable cause.
Yeah, then the university will do their own kangaroo court hearing and take the information from the alleged victim. Upon the recitation of the accusation, they won't even give the student often an opportunity to say anything in their defense, and then they'll throw them right out of school.
So, Sean, let's dumb this down for the people that don't know what we're talking about. Is you said probable cause. When you're saying probable cause, you mean like a 2%, 3% chance?
Like 30%, 35%. It's about the standard for getting pulled over. Often you're pulled over, and the police don't incarcerate you; they write you a ticket. But that's a very low infraction percentage.
Yeah, like maybe a 30. They look, okay, it's possible, it's plausible you did this. So what you're telling me is, the DA says, nah, this didn't even happen. The chances are less than 30% that this happened. And the guys, or girls or what have you, they get expelled from school for just like no chance they even did anything, just from an accusation alone, not even backed with anything.
I've had cases where the accused, the girlfriend has actually come forward to the university and said, this didn't happen, or I actually consented, and the university still throws the accuser out.
Man, that's worse than the Kavanaugh standard. I mean, that's what we got to base everything off of now, is the Kavanaugh standard, and it seems like this is worse than that.
The Kavanaugh had standards. This doesn't.
It absolutely is worse than that, and finally the law is about to change. President Trump installed a Secretary of Education who actually is taking due process seriously. What happened is, in 2011, the Obama administration, under pressure from radical leftist fringe groups, decided to rewrite the rules on Title IX and appease radical feminist organizations by basically adopting junk science that basically said every time somebody comes forward with an accusation, it must be true, therefore it should be believed. regardless if there's any evidence to prove the underlying merit to the accusation. So that gives an incentive there for revenge tactics, where you have a situation where one of my cases in the past where you had a jealous boyfriend go accuse the new boyfriend of misconduct, where the girlfriend said everything was consensual. And based on the accusation of the other boyfriend, the school throws out my client, even though the girlfriend said everything was legit and great.
So your client gets thrown out. Can he go to, he was going to maybe Baylor, or now can he go to, UT or Texas A&M? You think they'll accept him?
Almost 0% chance of getting accepted anywhere else legitimate, because on the transcript it'll say words to the effect that this individual is a sex pervert. Who's going to want to take on a student that has a transcript that says those words in their official documentation?
Maybe University of Phoenix or DeVry or one of the online schools. They might want to take them. I mean, it was a question.
You might get at University of Tanzania online degree, but
you can get your
online one. Now, let me ask you this, Sean, because this. I want to make sure, but this is not the same as what we saw with Baylor University a couple years ago with the football players, and this is also not the same as what we've seen in the past with Halliburton when they had the charges against them brought, because they were a military contractor and they had the sexual harassment claims. This Title IX is separate apart from those two different things, correct?
That is correct, and this is an example of the pendulum swinging way in the wrong direction, meaning there was at one time some National Guard units and some contractors that engaged in bad behavior that was covered up and that was erroneous and wrong. But instead of fixing the problem and giving an equal hearing to the individuals who were victimized, they've now taken it to the point of the extreme that everybody's guilty upon accusation, undoing the standard of evidence. Under the Constitution that we all live by, you're innocent unless proven guilty. Now,
you're guilty unless strongly proven otherwise.
Exactly. You're guilty unless you can basically prove your innocence, which sometimes it's impossible to prove a double negative. How do you prove you weren't there when you weren't there? I mean, sometimes it's impossible.
That's like when people say, "Tell me what you don't know." Well, I don't know what I don't know because I don't know it. It's almost the same thing.
Exactly, which has led to a lot of injustice, which has led now to the administration publishing new rules which will change the standard of evidence from preponderance to clear and convincing, meaning to throw a student out, they're going to have to conduct a real hearing. The student's going to be given an opportunity to have an actual attorney represent them. And feminist groups are up in arms about this, saying this is unfair to victims, but in reality, it's just enforcing the standards in the Constitution. The Constitution mandates due process.
So what I'm hoping is, that some of the people listening to the show, some of the state reps that listen to the show, see that there's something that, they can do, that they can, help, that they can push. Republicans should be really worried about losing, their elections in the next cycle, especially with the state Republicans barely winning. They should be reflecting and thinking about what caused them to lose or get so close. Maybe they weren't paying attention enough to people and veterans and those that they're supposed to help. And they have a chance to help veterans through this USARA stuff. They have a chance to help at least work on state law that is helpful with, Title IX and the such like that.
And Eric, that's the thing. I mean, Texas has always been
just make sure you stay close to the mic.
A very strong military. I mean, I could say for certain that the majority of state elected officials have been up in arms last year about the whole protesting the anthem because of this. So to me, it's kind of ironic or hypocritical to be so nonchalant in neglecting our service members with these types of lack of action and protections. When in the public, they're, rah for the military with this whole taking the knee thing.
You're right. And some of the people on Facebook, they're all talking about this Ron Reynolds and him being put in jail and all that type of stuff, which is fascinating. But I think that more of the focus should be on how that's more divisive. Though it is kind of crazy that you have a state rep that is in jail and it's going to be brought. I think that's crazy. But I think we'd be better served focusing on, how can we help people? How can we change the law to actually, do what we mean what we say? Because I think that voters question Republican sincerity, especially younger folk that came out in droves in the last election cycle. They see the Republican Party as the party of no. the party that breaks stuff, the party that doesn't help. And I think I think that Republicans need to first realize that they have a problem and, try to do something about it.
On Ron Reynolds, he ran unopposed, so there was no opportunity to vote for anybody else in general election. Republicans should be proactive in the communities they don't believe they're going to win in anyway. Having an option on the ballot may have actually resulted in somebody else getting elected.
That's very true. He did have a Democrat primary challenger, but he didn't have. He was unopposed with the general election. That's true. People should just run, even if you don't. There was plenty of Democrats that didn't think they had a shot at winning. In fact, the Democrat that won the county judge spot, whenever I'd go to functions, there were any Democrats in the room. In fact, I went to one function where she was there, and all the Democrats are saying that they're supporting Ed Emmett. So, and it's just shocking that that stuff like this happens.
And Anise Parker is kicking herself every day right now.
Well, to be fair, I'd rather the person we have versus Anise Parker any day of the week.
Oh, man. And you know what might be the most ironic thing of this is, what would happen if Ron Reynolds would be the one to carry this bill or this proposed legislation? Would he then win over the hearts of everybody across the state, especially in Missouri City? He has plenty of time on his hands to draft it up.
Well, he has he has a lot of help, I imagine, from the people he's spending time with to draft up a lot of things. I'm kind of curious I'm kind of curious the jailhouse drafts. This
may be his most productive session yet.
He's filing, as Jason Vaughn says, he's filing bills from prison. That's very jailhouse bills.
You've heard of Jailhouse Rock, and now you've heard how a bill becomes, a law. I guess you just combine the two, and you got Ron Reynolds' life story.
There you are. We'll be back, folks. Eric Dick Show. We'll be back in a few.
I never really liked smoking very much. I just
you got some of the criminal aspects.
Do criminal defense too, so we'll talk about some of the criminal cases, the military over prosecution of sex cases.
The criminal stuff's always juicy. Always juicy.
We can talk about that for a minute. I'll talk about some of the military. Math is put out a memo saying court-martials. Military is reduced to
court-martials
instead of the administrative
This product contains nicotine.
A court-martial gives you an opportunity to defend yourself. So I understand that that's actually better in some regard. But the reason why the military has cut down the number of court-martials for other offenses is because they spend so much time on these he said, she said cases that you can't prove. So the military is spending all their resources on these sex cases that are flimsy at best, that most local DAs won't prosecute. A local DA, it's very crummy, but it's all because of political pressure by Senator Gillibrand and other radical left members in the Senate who are demanding the military prosecute bogus cases that are ethically challenging from a prosecutorial standpoint. Meaning a prosecutor ethically probably shouldn't bring it forward, knowing the evidence is very weak. But they're bringing it forward anyway because of political pressure.
I think I can tie that also in with what happened with Jared Woodfill. Because even though they did that, the warrant search his law office, I don't think he can prosecute that case. Have you looked at it very much? It's basically a dispute over how much he charged for being a lawyer.
Hi, it's Joe Pags, like KPRC 950 on Facebook.
It is a civil issue. They're trying to spin it that he stole his client's money, but I'm sure I'd imagine I'd be shocked if he didn't send him the bill. The real question is, did he overbill? And that's a civil. There's a civil, and also the state bar. They came out and they just gave him a slap on the wrist. They gave him a public reprimand. Maybe it was a private reprimand.
But it wasn't anything more than that.
Hey, Craig, why is it called black coffee?
Anybody who feels aggrieved has a grievance ability. Just file arbitration. That seems like that was politically motivated.
Okay, guys and gals, we're back for the final segment on Eric Dick Show. We got Sean Simmons that has Timmons. Sorry,
Sean Timmons.
I can't say anybody's name. It's been a long weekend. I ate too much turkey. You're gonna have to forgive me. I'm asleep at the mic.
That turkey coma is real. That's not just a myth. That's an actual legitimate thing. You have too much turkey, too much protein, that will put you to sleep. Living facts.
Okay, so we had this really great guest today who practices military law, which is a really nuanced and fascinating area of law. Sean, one of the areas is criminal law that you practice with, and it's basically, if you wouldn't mind, would you talk about that?
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you, Eric. We represent individuals who are serving on active duty, who are facing court-martial. The military has their own criminal system of justice called the Uniform Code of Military Justice. So if you're in the military and you're charged with a crime, sometimes the civilians will take jurisdiction over that crime. Often they will punt back to the military and let the military prosecute that case. So, for example, there's an allegation of sexual assault, say in Houston, Texas. Harris County will do an investigation. They'll often give the case over to the CID, which is the criminal investigation of the U.S. Army, and the Army will then do their investigation. The command will decide if they're going to prosecute the case. If they prosecute the case, they'll refer charges against our soldier client. I'll step in and represent them. What I've noticed is the military is prosecuting fewer cases than they were 10 years ago, but the majority of the cases they are prosecuting today, because of political pressure that is undue influence, that many courts are finding undue influence on, is sex cases. And these are he said, she said, with almost no evidence. And often local jurisdictions will not prosecute such cases because prosecutors have an ethical obligation not to prosecute cases they think that are flimsy or they can't gain a conviction. The military, though, is marching to the orders of Senator Gillibrand and other radical leftists in the Senate, demanding prosecutions of cases that are flimsy at best.
It's crazy.
I mean, but you say flimsy at best, but don't we have a duty, especially this day and age, to take all precautions if that allegation is made, not necessarily to not have a due process, but don't we have to thoroughly investigate all these claims being made, especially in the times of the Me Too movement?
So, absolutely.
But investigation is completely different than like going through the process of prosecuting or trying to kick somebody out of the military or trying to court-martial somebody. Investigation is something completely different. And investigations are fine. Investigate everything. But don't court-martial somebody for something without any evidence or go through the proceeding.
And the problem with the investigations being done by the military is they've adopted a new junk science methodology called believe the victim, meaning they don't look at the credibility of the accuser anymore. They just take the information and run with it. So if the individual has a clear motive to lie or a clear motive to fabricate, or if the individual suffers from schizophrenia or hallucinations, they don't take that into consideration. They just take the information and run with it. And in the military, there's often custody issues or there's other nefarious reasons to fabricate for malicious purposes. The investigators don't even consider that anymore. Local DAs consider all that information when they do an investigation and an assessment of whether they should bring charges. The military is basically got their arms tied behind their back, not even allowed to look at the credibility of the accuser.
Crazy.
Wow. I mean, that goes back to something I've been saying for a while, especially when I have to deal with a lot of family law issues, is that when you have parents and disputes over the children, and they start throwing these accusations around, they start getting CPS involved. If you start holding people accountable for false reports, not just threatening to hold them accountable, but actually holding people accountable for false allegations and false reports, I think that's when you'll start seeing some change in that behavior. Don't you agree?
I agree, but I also family law is a very dangerous sport. I had to get out of that. That's just very angry. There's always someone mad as the result of a custody battle.
And Chris, that's a great point. In the UK, 150 people in the past year were prosecuted for perverting the Crown's service, meaning they made false accusations and they were incarcerated for that. In the United States, with a population 5 times the size, you have far fewer people prosecuted for false accusations.
Yeah, and see, to me that's a problem, because the reason so many people get carried away with these accusations, these allegations, these fake stories, fake news, whatever you want to call it, is because there's no accountability. People can say whatever they want, especially now that they have this anti-SLAPP suit. People can say anything they want and not be held accountable, whether it's legally false, intentionally false, any which way. And I just think it's ridiculous. And again, Eric, it goes back to your point. These lawsuit reform people are just taking away the open court system.
Oh, it's not an open court system at all. In fact, if they had it their way, it'd be an arbitration system where everything would be private, nothing would be public. you wouldn't be able to know anything about anything, and that'd be their preference. So
Kind
they
of
don't
like
have
the
to
military
pay.
system, I guess.
They don't. They kind of like them. They don't want any accountability. And just to talk about anti-SLAPP for a minute, I mean, it's so ridiculous that you could say anything you want about anybody, and it doesn't even have to be remotely true. And it's not just your typical defamation cases. It's in contract cases. Like, it's insane how broad anti-SLAPP is. So unless a case is like exempt from anti-SLAPP, insurance, personal injury, family law, that type of stuff, I'd really look closely to see if somebody would just make allegations that anti-SLAPP applies, and know that it's possible that it very well may apply, no matter how bizarre it is. If you look at the cases on anti-SLAPP, Del Felton, one of the gurus at insurance law, has kind of focused on anti-SLAPP and just how crazy it is. That's something that should be stopped. Defamation doesn't exist in Houston and Texas. And you could say anything you want. It doesn't even have to be close to true.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest problem right there, is that you have people protecting unwarranted speech, as false as it can be, and now you have criminal repercussions being attached to that, and no one's being held accountable. So that's amazing to hear that 150 people were charged with that in the UK this past year. I don't think we have a fraction of that being prosecuted over here. I mean, it's just amazing. It's appalling.
That's the government we have, where they say one thing and they do something else, and they wonder why they do so bad in elections. That's the government we have.
Hold on, Eric, is that you saying that the UK has a better system with multi-parties, where we need to get away from the two-party system? Is that what I heard you say?
I've always advocated. I actually like the idea of nonpartisan elections, especially when it involves judges. I like the idea of nonpartisan elections. That's my preference, is nonpartisan elections. Though I'm a Republican, and I'm elected Republican, and I've been a Republican a long time. I think that there's plenty of there's good people on both sides. There's bad people on both sides too, but there's good. I prefer to be the optimist and say there's good people on both sides. I know there's some very kind-hearted Democrats that only want to help people, and there's plenty of kind-hearted Republicans that only want to help people. But there's people that are the exact opposite, that just want to break stuff. One thing I wanted to talk about, kind of in the final few minutes while we're here, is it is tax season. When I say tax season, you're getting your bills for your property taxes. That's why I say it's tax season. It's starting. And people always jump up and down and say how they want to abolish the Department of Education. And I even admit, when I first ran for office, I jumped up and down. I said abolish it, mainly because everyone said that's what you're supposed to do. That's the right thing to do. And I'm like, okay, well, that sounds reasonable. I'm going to do that. And as I kept running and learning more about the Department of Education, I kind of was shocked. I say that because, I'm looking at my tax bill, and I'm paying a lot in taxes, like more than some people make a year. And out of that bill, which is big, about $30,000-ish, I'm paying $40. Not $50, $40 to the Department of Education. So people jumping up and down and saying, this is wasteful money. We need some tax relief. I don't see how getting $50, this is really $40, out of paying $30,000 is going to help anybody. And that's just kind of where I first start with the Department of Education.
And I'm sure you got a big chunk of that going to Houston Independent School District, who can't find the left from the right, up or down.
That is where the majority of property taxes go. And I keep trying to tell people, if you actually want, I try to tell, I wish more Republicans cared about education, actually did something with education, because most of them don't do anything with education, save and except Betsy, who appears in the federal government, is trying to do something, at least with the standards. But locally, the whole, it's basically, we don't even participate in education. If anything, the state government, it lessens the amount of money that goes to the local ISDs, which in result, they do increase taxes. I'm not saying that they spend their money in any way, shape, reasonably, because they don't. It's like two wrongs only make a really, really bad situation. That's what we're at. We have the state government reducing the amount that they give to the ISDs, and then we have the ISDs just basically taking the money, putting it in the backyard, and setting it on flames. So it's literally insane what's going on.
Too high of taxes. It's a story we hear every year. Sean Timmons, thanks for coming by today, man. It's been very fascinating and great to hear what you've been saying and filling us in on the nuances of military law. What's that contact information again if anybody has any issues that are service members or former service members who may need to reach out to you?
I appreciate that. It's tullylegal.com. That's TULLY legal, LEGAL.com. You can also find us on Facebook and LinkedIn and throughout the web. I'm in Houston, Texas. I'm 2925 Richmond Avenue, Suite 1200, and 518-640-3550.
What some people might not realize is I've known Sean a little bit. He used to practice homeowners insurance law also. And that's where I first met Sean. And he's a really, really talented litigator. I do mean that.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, and people, if you are suffering from problems that involve this military law, you'd be wise to at least talk to him. And he can kind of point you at least in the right direction. He's very knowledgeable. He's always been a good type of lawyer, the kind that you want. Some people, they think of lawyers as, oh, these evil people, bloodsuckers, what have you. That's how they're demonized, which is just ridiculous. I'd always think of a lawyer as that's who gets you out of trouble. That's who, is your advocate. If there's anybody that you can rely on, it's your lawyer. So all this stuff about demonizing lawyers is always nonsense.
Yeah, and that's why we're happy and we're honored to have Sean Timmons on the Eric B. Dick Show today. But when you're also looking for someone who's going to protect your rights who may not be in the military, and you are a victim of the insurance's bully, scheme, and tactics, make sure you always contact Houston's homeowner insurance lawyer, Eric B. Dick. He's the only one that's fighting across the state of Texas to protect your rights as it comes to being a homeowner up against the massive, big money, big dollar, big business insurance companies. Again, that's Homeowners Insurance, Eric B. Dick, and this has been the Eric B. Dick Show.
And guys, you can you can go on LinkedIn. You can add me. You can add me on Instagram at Dick Law Firm, Twitter at Dick Law Firm, Facebook at Eric B. Dick. And thanks to all my friends on Facebook that we've been talking with, and all my friends on Twitter. See y'all next week. Y'all have a great time. Bye, folks.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate all the interaction. You guys have a great Thanksgiving weekend. Bye, guys. Y'all have a great weekend. Appreciate it so much.